You're okay?
Hi, welcome to Friday Focus. I am Jane Smith and Danielle.
I am Danielle Dionne. I am Danielle Dionne.
We are here today with an incredible man, Dr. Jason Walker, and we are thrilled because we're going to be talking about the power of change and how changing your habits can change your life. I love this subject, and I truly believe if you do have a habit that you can change, you will see a huge difference. So we're excited to talk to Dr. Jason Walker today. And Danielle, going to do a little introduction for us.
Sure, I'm happy to introduce Jason Walker to Today Focus and Peace 360 today to talk about habits. How do I introduce Jason? Well, if you read his bio on paper, it's very impressive. So I took some key points away from the bio. Never ceases to amaze me, Jason. First off, he is a practitioner of psychology and a professor. He is a researcher, a mediator, and also an arbitrator. His specialties include child maltreatment and workplace bullying. He's also spent nearly a decade working with throughout BC and communities, Indigenous communities, where he was working to incorporate cultural teachings and motivation and positive psychology. So, wow, some crazy intervention up in those rural communities, I'm sure. And you can also visit Jason on LinkedIn or also track him down at his business at mastercoach.ca. Super great to have Jason here. And I just also want to say, above all things, Jason's a great friend and he is truly a master coach. So I invite everyone, if you're looking for somebody to motivate you and create better habits, to visit Jason. So welcome, Jason.
Thank you.
Today we're talking about habits. So today, just to start off, I think it's an important thing. What is a habit? Let's start out with that.
Sure, absolutely. And just to clarify, I'm a practicing therapist, and a lot of my work is in addiction and trauma. So when we talk about habit in psychology, what we mean is it refers to more of a process where context promote action automatically. So what does that mean? So through activation of mental models, action and associations, we've learned certain behaviors. So to break that down, a habit is defined as a way of behaving that is repeated so often it no longer requires conscious thought. So a habit might be a person hopefully brushing their teeth before bed, or walking the dog every morning, or going for a run every morning. So that's a habit. It's almost an unconscious process that we just keep doing, and it's a frequent performance, if that makes more sense.
Absolutely.
Why, Jason? Why do people tend to go more towards bad habits? It's more common, don't you think?
Well, absolutely. It feels good, right? It feels good. It feels good to have the cheeseburger or the glass of wine, and our brain is stimulated with all the good hormones when that stuff happens. So that's why it's so difficult to when we're enjoying something and it's part of our typical everyday conscious behavior, and we've linked it to things, right? Like, oh, have a meal, have a smoke, or 5 o'clock, glass of wine. It just becomes normal and it feels good. It feels, even if it's hurting us, it feels good. So
and then once you've created the habit, so that is into your subconscious programming almost. So that is it because the more you do it over a long period of time, then it's so hard to break because it's just like this comfortable. You don't think about it.
Absolutely, and it depends on your school of thought and theory and stuff we could spend so much time on. But here's how I remember it. It's the 21-90 rule. Okay, the 21-90 rule. So the rule is simple. You commit to a goal for about 21 days. And then after 3 weeks, the goal should have become a habit, right? The hard part is breaking a habit, because although it takes 21 days to build it, it takes like 90 plus to create or uncreate something. So if you want a healthy lifestyle, you gotta think of it as a marathon. If you want to break an addiction, it's gonna take you time, right? But we all want that silver bullet.
Jason, I wonder about, I like the 21-90 rule, and also I agree it's more difficult to break a bad habit. And I would argue that I think there's a lot of good habits that we do every day, except we focus on the bad ones. And also, like, how important is it in the 21-90, do you think, to be diligent in imperfection on the consistency every day? So if I miss a day, right, is it, you know, we can still build habit, right, if we get back up? Or
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely, it's okay to miss a day, and it's okay not to punish yourself and have some negative self-talk for. I mean, when you think about breaking an addiction, relapse is part of recovery, right? So I mean, the same applies. The same applies to getting off the hamburger or getting off, you know, whatever that is.
I like that, because I think that's a piece of the guilt, right? So I know, like, building routines with families and with how parents manage their family. Oh, it doesn't work, and it's about the consistency. Doesn't mean have to be military. It doesn't have to be every day. Consistency is when you can, right?
Absolutely.
And I think resiliency is where you're going there too, is like resiliency and being decisive to actually make the decision to get back going is hard.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, during COVID, I've seen a lot of people who have, like, we've done research. I've published with some colleagues, and we were looking at mental health, and we were looking at addiction. And after 9/11 in New York, use of alcohol went up for a period of time by about 30-40%. And we're seeing that with COVID, right? So I hear someone, I'm drinking too much. I'm like, awesome, you've identified it. So what are you gonna do? Right? I'm drinking so much. Like, yeah, you are. So like,
yeah, you are.
Yeah. So first step is to become aware that it's a bad habit. But I know you have three main areas you're going to talk about to help people.
I do.
The 3 C's.
Yeah, the 3 C's. The 3 C's. And
motivation, create ability, create triggers.
That's right, MAT. M-A-T. So
Matt.
Yeah. So if you're aware, right, and you are I need to make a change. I need to make a change, right? And change is hard, and we're not good at it. And everyone, I'm great at change. You're not, but awesome. Like, it's a good starting place, right? We need to be motivated. So we need to be specific on our goal. I'll give you an example. When about April, I was like, clothes are a little tight, right? Like eating cookie dough and just like not, this was not necessarily coffee. And it's like, okay, I'm motivated to do something. So I started walking, just walking, right? I could barely make it a couple kilometers. And then over time, like, I'm running 10K a day, almost every day, but it's a marathon, right? So what a lot of people do is they get motivated and they're not specific on their goal. So after motivation, we look at ability. And we have to be simplistic. I'm going to walk around the block. Or I'm going to alternate a glass of wine with a glass of water. Or instead of drinking the bottle, I'm going to have half, right? A simplistic goal. Because you're not going to go out and run a marathon if you haven't trained, right? So that's ability. And then triggers. And what I mean by triggers can be good. Because if we attach it to something important, right? Give you an example. One of my neighbors said, learn piano during COVID. I'm like, God, I tried that for 12 years. I remember nothing. She said, well, I said, what did you do? She said, well, every night before dinner, 15 minutes practice. I'm like, okay. She said, but I attached it to dinner. And then I started doing better. So then it was like 30 minutes before dinner. And then like an hour before dinner, right? So it was a specific time. The trigger was, oh, dinner's at 6 or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So motivation, ability, triggers. And you got to be specific and have realistic goals.
Right.
It's interesting because I was thinking about with, oh, sorry, Danielle, go ahead.
No, I think I'm lagging my camera, so I'm coming in behind, and it's okay. Go ahead, Jane.
It just reminded me with myself during COVID, because I was not working out, even though I have a home gym, and I was really enjoying a glass of wine with my husband every night. Like, trust me, we love the wine, not a whole bottle, just a nice glass of wine. And when I decided I wanted to work out and get in shape, I guess this is a trigger. I decided that I could not have a glass of wine. I said to my husband, I am not having a glass of wine unless I've worked out, done something in the gym. And it was like a reward for me. So I honestly, I didn't miss a day in the gym for like 2 months. I was determined to have that glass of wine. I would go downstairs, at least do a yoga class, and he'd be having his wine. And then I'd come up. I'd feel so good because I was like, oh, I just did a body pump. Give me the glass of wine. Yeah. But after 2 months, I created such a good habit and loving the gym and how I was feeling that I didn't need the reward after that.
That's right.
So that's the same idea of creating a new habit.
Last night, I was teaching at one of the universities I teach at, and I'm early PhD career. Like, 2017, I got my PhD. So I get all the good classes like 3 hours at night, right? So anyway, I was teaching a course on learning. And we were talking about operant conditioning, right? Press the lever, get some food. Press the lever, get some food. And so that's kind of what you're talking about. But the best way to do that is intermittent reinforcement, right? Press the lever. Today I get a glass of wine. Tomorrow I don't, right? And then, yeah. So. And
I actually did. I kept track. I wrote in my book every day I worked out. I highlighted what I did in colors, and then there was like 2 days where it said no wine, sad face, because I didn't work out. But now I can look back and see all these days that I actually
see the change.
Yeah, but it did take a good 90 days to actually.
So specific.
I wonder about the idea. All of the things about setting a goal is one piece, and that's our thinking. So I think a lot, it's setting a specific goal is a skill in itself, goal setting, and making it doable, making it small, something where you can actually achieve. So that's a big piece too. And I wonder too, I think where I get stuck, or where it might be a common thing to get stuck, is actually behaving. So it's one thing to think I want to do something, but actually putting it into behavior and action is, I wonder about how we can connect this back to mental health, because my wondering is, if I'm feeling really well, I can set a goal and I can behave that way. But if I'm stuck for whatever reason, then setting the goal and then not behaving that way, what do we do?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question, and comes up all the time. That comes up all the time. And the first thing I always say to everybody, oh, so it's okay not to be okay, right? Like, it's okay not to be able to climb the mountain today, right? But what did you do? Well, I got out of bed. Okay, that's awesome, right? That's a step. And I think we have a tendency to not celebrate the small wins. So if you are incredibly depressed and you got out of bed, you called a friend, or you talked to me or whatever, well, that's a win, right? But people want the marathon. Like, oh, I just ran a marathon. And it's like, okay, well, let's just reframe that thinking in terms of daily skills.
I'm hearing your positive psychology and strength-based perspective in this. And in my work, I am all over that too. And helping families intervene on their conflict is really about, where are you at? And individually, where are you at? So I think it's important that we really talk about, like, our habits aren't just, they're not collective. Some of them might be. We can have a good conversation about that. But individually, being honest about where we are at, and having somebody to talk to that can bounce back that honesty and say, like, getting out of bed is a win for you today. That is great. Let's talk about what it was like to get out of bed, because that is a win. And I think it's good to foster the success of those small steps. say the goal is a marathon, and what is the reality there if our goal is getting out of bed right now, then in the long term. And I think, Jane, too, journaling it, writing it down, and like tracking your success. Jason, do you know anything about actually making the environment more successful for us to behave a certain way, to move a habit towards good behavior?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you asked that. So the first thing you got to do after you have this pre-contemplation, I need to make a change, which is awesome, then you need to tell somebody. Because the minute you tell someone, or you post that on Facebook, like, you are now committed, and someone is going to be holding you accountable. If not, hopefully yourself, but other people. But that's definitely one way. And I love the journaling, like cognitive behavioral stuff. Like, you're consistently evaluating, reevaluating, and really looking at your wins in a different way.
I think so small wins are
failure, right? It's not failure. It's not failure. Yeah.
No, we never fail. We learn, right? Never.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So small wins. That's Brene Brown. I've read a lot of her books, and she's really into that, celebrating your small wins.
I Jason Walker, but whatever. Yeah.
It's also PMTO, I would say. Small steps, big goals. Yeah.
But it's true, because you think about someone that's watching this that is really struggling. COVID is difficult. The pandemic is magnifying everything. Our behaviors, if there was an issue before, it's magnified it. And so I feel for the person that could be watching that's just really in a down place and being like, they're just struggling to even think, oh, it's nice for you. You can go to your gym and not have wine, but I can't even get out of bed, like you say. So it's like, okay, is it really important, those tiny habits, just tiny habits that you change every day? Like making sure, like you say, just walk around the block, get out in the fresh air every day.
If you can. And I've worked with clients over COVID that are like, I can't leave my apartment. Like, I'm afraid. Like, okay, cool. So what can you do in your apartment? And, well, I can step out on the balcony. Awesome. Like, let's start with that and then progress from there. So, like, really what you want to try and do is tap into that emotional center, right? So you help someone, like if you're your friend or whatever, you're helping the person feel the cost of not changing and the benefits to change. So then the second thing you do, specific actions. Then the third thing you do, you set up the success in your environment. Like Danielle was saying, like, you put the shoes by the door, or you, like, whatever that is, to get you to where you need to be. And it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy, right?
Mm-hmm. I really like where you're going there about, like, putting shoes by the door, that creating an environment, having things in our environment that encourage good habits. And I also see too, having things in our environment that encourage bad habits, right? So clutter, or having people around us that are really draining, right? That are constantly toxic folks, right? Toxic workplaces, Jason. I mean, all of this, we have the ability to choose to be in environments that make us well, and we have the ability to choose to be in environments that make us unwell. So I think that I mean, I would say that's a privilege in some cases as well, for sure, and sometimes not. So I think that it's a responsibility in a way for us to recognize how we are in our environments to encourage other people's habits too. So what can I do, Jason, if I have a friend or I have a family member or I'm looking in the mirror to be better in an environment? Like, how can I encourage somebody, and what should I do and what might I not do?
Sure. And that's another amazing question. So, like, number one, when I think about that is, like, if someone puts up their hand and there's like, yeah, not okay. Awesome. Right? Courageous. No judgment. Like, that's a starting point. And when I think about trauma, because it's all related, right? And the 4 R's of trauma, we're realizing that there's impact. We're recognizing that there's symptoms. We're responding. And responding can be as much as, hey man, yeah, I'm here for you, right? You text me, whatever. Or, like, do you want to talk to your doctor? Like, do you want me to come with you? Or can we set up, like, Babylon telehealth online. You don't want to go out? No problem. Try this. But what we want to do is we want to resist that re-victim or re-traumatization. So how do we do that? As colleagues, and as we create a safe space to start where they're at. That's the best advice I ever got in school. Like, you can have the best ideas and goals as a professional, but if you don't start where that client is, you're going to fail. So the same applies to your friend. Same applies to your friend.
That's super powerful, because that's
So
just empathy and compassion to feel what they're feeling. And I there's that the difference between being a sympathetic person and empathetic. Sympathy is like looking, someone's laying at the bottom of a pit and you're like looking down. You go, oh, I'm so sad for you. When you're better, come on up and we'll have a party. Or the empathetic person is climbing down the ladder, laying beside the person, being, are you okay? Like, let's talk it out. Let's go up together. Like, that's the empathy.
You rise, you raise people up. Yeah. And it can be as simple as checking in. Like, it's not
totally hard. Checking in, connecting with somebody is so helpful. Yeah. What do you think, Jason? What are your thoughts about with, mental illness, let's say, you name it, anxiety, depression, ADHD being the most common amongst people, I would say, trauma, basically. How does this affect habits, and what should somebody do when they are in a situation like this and they would like to create better habits? What are some small steps?
So I just caution in terms of like the pathology of a depression or an anxiety. Like, that's serious. Like, that's serious. It's not a habit. It's a serious mental health condition. It's like a broken leg, but we look at it different, right? So we can treat a broken leg. And physicians and psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists can treat depression and anxiety. And people are like, oh, yeah, right. No, really, right? Like, there's multiple ways to do it.
Yeah, it's treatable.
It's treatable. That being said, it just goes back to the guilt and shame around addiction or bad habits or whatever, and having the courage to say to somebody you trust, hey, I need a little help. And if that person's not listening to you, then you try it with someone else, right? So that is the small step. The small step is, hey, like, help. How am I going to do this different? How am I going to do it different? Do you remember Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So the other day I was teaching in a undergrad class. I'm like, okay, so Seinfeld, just crickets. Like, blank stares. I'm like, oh no, like, I just aged myself. But do you remember that episode where George did everything different? Instead of saying he was an archaeologist or architect, he's like, I'm unemployed. I live with my parents. Like, I'm balding. And he got the most attractive person in the room, and he got a new job. And it's a good example of, if you're doing the same thing every day and not getting the result you need, I challenge you, just for a day, do it completely different. As long as it's safe, do it completely different and see what happens. And I'll say that to clients or people, and they're like, oh, yeah, Seinfeld, that worked. Like, right. So now you got to stick with it. Right.
Do you know what's interesting? What's interesting is I was listening to something the other day about this woman that said that she was really in a down place, and she realized when she was walking by a mirror or something that she was like, and she decided to just spend a week putting her shoulders back and changing her posture, and was making a conscious effort, even though she was feeling like this. She went out in the world, and when she walked by a store, she'd be like, oh, make sure my shoulders are back. And she said the difference of the reaction she got from people, because she had this air of confidence instead of this, it changed everything for her. Just that little
self-efficacy and self-esteem. And you triggered something for me when you said that. It's like, you need to fuel your mind, right, with positive, it's not always positive, but like really working on your mental models and the negative self-talk, and like, stop. But just like you feel your body. So when I'm on a crisis team, and when we go, I always bring water and bananas. And people are like, what? It's like, yeah, you need to drink more water to get the bad hormones out of your body. And like, bananas are good for short term, a lot of stuff, right? But you got to fuel your mind like you feel your body. So that's a good example. Good example.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's where we always end up, Jane, in these conversations, right? How are we thinking about our thinking, right? And our thoughts are not necessarily facts. So it's important to recognize that, you know, how our thoughts affect our emotions and how our feelings affect our behavior, and having the ability to reflect on how we think, and knowing that it's all so powerful to take time to think about what we're telling ourselves and the volume of our thoughts, right?
Okay.
And I think that's key.
Jason, I'm just wondering, okay, just because Danielle said that, I believe that so much, everything is how we think. And a lot of people, you can get in a bad habit of negative self-talk, negative thinking. The create motivation, create ability, create triggers, can that be used to change a habit of negative thinking?
Absolutely.
How would you do that? How would you do that?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you how I do it. On my run in the morning, no negative thoughts. And when I start thinking, because I do, and I ruminate, and I can pick on myself and all that stuff, I actually out loud, I'm like, Jason, stop. Like for this hour, because that takes me a while, like no negative self-thinking, right? And a friend of mine, very wise friend, said to me several years ago, she's like, so how much, like, you know, if you're ruminating about like a conversation or someone being nasty or toxic, it's like, so how much free rent you gonna give them? I'm like, what? How much free rent in your head are you gonna give them? I'm like, oh, darn, that's good, right? So I constantly remind myself, like, they're not at home thinking about me. So why would I give them free time in my head? And just being always, again, awareness, right? And then techniques, even like smacking the table. I have a client, I have worked with people where like, oh, I worry. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, me too. So how long? And like, look at you and like, well, like all day? Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, okay, well, what if you gave yourself half an hour? Oh. So from 10 to 10:30, you can worry as much as you want about anything. Then you got to get on.
Schedule your worrying.
So powerful.
No.
Schedule time for stinking thinking. I love that idea. Schedule
Okay,
time. This could be my self-loathing hour right now, guys.
Right.
Half an hour.
Yeah.
And then
Try
the
not
next
to do it
3
before
hours
bed,
today,
right?
I'm going to just tell myself I'm great. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Jason, I still want to be clear on if someone had negative thinking, to simplify it, so that create motivation. If you have negative thinking, what would that be? Be specific on your goal. So
right. So how much free rent you gonna give them on your negative thinking? So that's free rent. Yeah. And then in terms of the ability, it is rather simple. I'm not going to give it. I don't like volunteering or giving free bad things, right? So with the ability part, like, do you recognize that? And then the trigger is when you start thinking about it, do something. Say out loud, Jason, stop. Slap your hands. Hit the whatever you have to do to change your mental model, right? Those are just 3 easy steps to make a small change, and it takes time. It's not easy. It takes time.
Do you think it's important for people to when they become aware of their negative thinking, they know it's a habit, like, wow, I really talk negative, and to write it down, like, okay, or
if that works for you, for sure.
I would encourage to write down, like, if you're thinking about negative things, write the opposite. So I'm gonna, like, Danielle, you know, you're really lazy today. I'm going to go write down, Danielle, you have fantastic energy today. So just, I would worry about ruminating on anything negative, like physically. Yeah. That to me, I was,
replace it with an affirmation, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Or if you're a visual person, go look at something that makes you happy. If you're a reading, writing person, write it down. If you're a kinetic, tactile person, draw it. Right? Like, do something, get it out, leave it on the table, walk away.
There's a real good bonus, I think, in visualizing your outcome too, in the end of all of this, thinking about habits, is while you're setting a goal, it's a good idea to think kind of long term, think about vision board, or think about, like, what will change for you when you succeed. And how will that success, what will it be for you? And also maybe even, reward yourself a little bit with what that deadline looks like. I think there's a huge bonus. I know it's a tool for me, like I'll vision like something and I'll be like, oh my God, what will that be like for me? And that helps me feel ready. Like I feel more ready when I see an end game.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to fail the test. 100% you are. You've just learned. But I'm gonna improve this year. My goal is to improve my mental health. This is what I want it to look like. And it's specific, it's measurable, it's actionable, it's timely, SMART goal. Go do it then. Yeah. Don't make it a marathon. Make it something not so huge.
I think the power of the tiny habits, a little change every day over a long period of time. Like I read the what is it now? That book where why can't I think of it? Every day over a long period of time.
Oh, I was thinking of the Atomic Habits book.
Oh, that's a good book. No, but so I did. I decided a couple of years ago that I was like, my arms. I was like, my grandma, and my arms were flabby, and I was like, oh, I need to create a habit because I'm aware that you can create a habit, and then it's a compound effect. The compound effect.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So what you do, and people don't realize, like, okay, just this little thing every day over 2 years. So I started doing, and it was really hard, push-ups before I got in the shower. So I was not allowed to have a shower, which I do every day, until I did 30 push-ups. I started on my knees. For a year, every day. And the first month was really hard. But then because I'd have to remind myself, right? And then after like 30 days, I was like, brush my teeth, push-ups in the shower, brush my teeth, push-ups in the shower. 2 years later, I added them up. I'd done 21,965 push-ups.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It became a habit. I like brushing my teeth. I didn't even think about it.
Well, and it's like, you want the beach body and the six pack and whatever. And like, I know it's in there, but in order for me to do that, I need to do some sit-ups and watch my diet. Right. So what you're describing is perfect in terms of brush my teeth, trigger, push-ups. I feel good, serotonin, all that stuff. Have a shower. I'm doing some self-care.
Right. But you don't realize how it adds up.
That is, I think
it adds up. Yeah. It adds up. Yeah. And it's success. Yeah, for sure.
I love thinking out of the box like that, Jane. Who would have connected push-ups and brushing your teeth together? But I think there must be some sort of great formula there to help. What would be the most unlikely time for me to do this habit, right? Or do this new behavior? That could be really helpful for some people.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like poster child for like oral health, physical health, mental health. Just those 3 steps in your bathroom. Like, well done. Yeah, I've never heard that. Like, that's pretty good. I'm going to use that.
Well, to sum up, I think it's important that we kind of reflect back on why we're here with Peace 360 today. And Peace 360 really has a mission to connect mental health, conflict resolution, and peace. And to have a conversation about habits, some people might not be able to see how all of that is connected. And so I want to kind of give one last big question, Jason. When we think about habits, how does habits join in a conversation with mental health and peace?
Oh, well, that is incredibly complex that I would drill down to 3 things. And they are simple when you think about it, hard to do. So number 1, you have to dream big. And the reason you have to dream big is because it allows you to be creative. It allows you to be innovative. Okay? So that's the first thing. And it should be a good dream. Right? Good dream. And the second thing, easier said than done, and we've all not done this, do what's right, not what's easy. Because it is sure easy to put things in the too hard pile, right? So that's number 2. It connects to conflict resolution. It connects to mental health. It connects to your character. And then 3, you got to finish what you start. You got to finish what you do. I failed out of a PhD. I've had like lots of ups and downs of trauma, PTSD. Okay, cool. Went back, did a PhD, went back, did a PsyD. So it is possible to finish what you start. It's a course, it's push-ups, it's whatever, right? So those 3 things, dream big, do what's right, not what's easy, and then finish what you start. I think that kind of ties in what you're all about.
Dream big. And what was the other? Say them again.
Yeah,
Right,
dream big. Do what's right, not what's easy, and then finish what you start. Yeah. If that's getting out of bed, if that's going to get a PhD, if that whatever it is, you need to finish what you start, right? So you've committed.
Finish. I can dream big. Holy, can I ever dream big?
And
I can do often what's right when not what's easy. I can work my tail off, but I'm not a good finisher. You know that a bit.
Interesting.
Literally, I need to do that. Maybe I'll spend a year finishing things.
We all got things we need to work on. But I think if you ground it in that, right? You ground it in those three things. Or like Buddha, like, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind?
Right.
Similar, right? And you're grounding it in those three things. You're probably making okay decisions. And it's okay when you don't. Don't punish yourself. Just don't do it again. Right.
There's the quote of our whole session. Don't punish yourself. Just don't do it again.
That's right.
Wow, that's good. Dream big, do what's right, not what's easy. Finish what you started. Love it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Super fun. I feel like we could talk for days and pick on your brain because you have so much knowledge and skill and a joy to talk.
And Jason, his website's incredible. I went to your website. I was blown away by everything you do and how many people you are helping and can help. And I think everyone should go to his website, that mastercoach.ca, and check it out because
we got a good team.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed having you on.
It was fun. Thank you so much.
Maybe we'll have you on again.
We encourage everybody who's watching to make a comment, to go to Jason's website, to share Peace 360 initiative with your networks, and also to check in on your habits and see what you can do to start small and reach out to anyone who you see might be stuck. Yeah, I think that's an important piece. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
Hey,
see you next Friday for Friday Focus.
Goodbye.